At exactly 3:23 in the morning, the world came closer to ending than anyone will ever admit. There were no explosions. No sirens wailing in the streets. No final, desperate warning broadcast to humanity. There was just a quiet room, a blinking red screen, and one single human decision. And if that decision had gone the other way, you wouldn't be here right now. This wasn't a scene from a movie. And it certainly wasn't a drill. This was the Cold War. A time when the entire planet lived in a state of permanent, nail-biting tension. Two global superpowers were locked in a staring contest, each one utterly convinced the other was just about to strike first. Both sides had enough nuclear weapons to wipe out civilization, not just once, but several times over. Peace didn't exist because of trust. It existed because of fear. In that world, hesitation was considered the most dangerous thing you could do. The military doctrine on both sides was brutally simple: if you detect an attack, you respond immediately. Not later. Not after a quick discussion. Immediately. Because in a nuclear war, you might not get a chance for a second strike. That single belief shaped everything. It shaped how soldiers were trained. It shaped the entire command structure. And it shaped the incredible machines built to protect us. These machines were designed to see what human eyes couldn't. They were built to react faster than any human ever could. They didn't panic. They didn't doubt. And they certainly didn't feel fear. The humans in the room were there for one reason and one reason only: to push the button and confirm what the machine already knew. Then, suddenly, the alert appeared. The screen flashed a terrifying, brilliant red. The words blinked across the display: incoming nuclear missiles detected. For a long, silent moment, nobody spoke. This wasn't supposed to happen. The system showed a launch. Then another. Then another. 5 missiles. Now, 5 missiles weren't enough to destroy the world entirely. But they were more than enough to force retaliation. And that retaliation would trigger more retaliation. A catastrophic chain reaction with no pause button. No rewind. And definitely no apology. The protocol was crystal clear. Confirm the data on the screen. Report the attack up the chain of command. Initiate the response. Once that phone call was made, the events that followed could not be stopped. Everyone in that bunker trusted the system. It had been designed by the best engineers on the planet. It was tested repeatedly, rigorously. It was protected by layer after layer of redundancy. A system failure was considered almost impossible. Almost. But something didn't feel right. It wasn't fear. It wasn't panic. It was logic. Why only 5 missiles? If this was a real, all-out first strike, why such a small, limited attack? Why would an enemy risk everything with an opening move that didn't guarantee total destruction? It just didn't match military doctrine. It didn't match any known strategy. It made absolutely no sense. The phone was right there, waiting. On the other end of that line were people trained to act instantly. People who would launch without a moment's hesitation. People who would trust the report completely, without question. The system insisted the missiles were real. Every single indicator said the same thing. Years of training screamed to follow protocol. Years of drills demanded he trust the machine. But a small voice, a nagging instinct, said, wait. Time was running out. Seconds ticked by like hammer blows. The window to act was closing fast. If no report was made, there would be serious questions. This kind of delay could be seen as incompetence. Or even worse, treason. This wasn't a heroic movie moment. There was no dramatic music swelling in the background. No slow-motion shot of a determined face. There was just pressure. Pure, crushing, unbearable pressure. Make the call, and history changes forever. Don't make the call, and you might be remembered as the person who ignored the end of the world. Less than 60 seconds remained. The other officers in the room expected action. The system itself demanded confirmation. But that one tiny grain of doubt remained. And then came the decision, quiet and dramatic. He chose to wait. The seconds stretched into an eternity. Nothing happened. No fiery explosions on the horizon. No seismic confirmations of impact. Then, new data arrived on the screens. There were no missiles. There was no launch. There was no attack. The system had failed. But it wasn't sabotage. It wasn't a sophisticated hack from an enemy. And it wasn't even a simple human error. The cause was something far more unsettling. The machine did exactly what it was designed to do. It saw something it had never been taught to understand. Light. That night, the unique position of the sun, the specific orbit of the early warning satellites, and the precise angle of high-altitude clouds aligned in a way that had never happened before. And has never happened since. Sunlight reflected off the tops of those clouds and shot directly into the satellite sensors. To the cold, calculating mind of the machine, that brilliant reflection looked exactly like the heat signature of multiple missile engines igniting. The system wasn't broken. It was just blind in a very specific, very dangerous way. Only a human mind could see the bigger picture, the context. Only a human could ask the simple question, why doesn't this make sense? Had that call been made, retaliation would have followed within minutes. And that retaliation would have been seen by the other side as confirmation of a real attack, forcing them to launch their own missiles. Launch after launch. Response after response. A domino effect of global annihilation, until there was nothing left to respond with. No winners. No survivors. No history books to record the mistake. Instead, nothing happened. The world kept turning. People slept soundly through the night, never knowing how close everything, and everyone, came to disappearing forever. You might think the person who made that world-saving decision was celebrated as a hero. You would be wrong. By proving the billion-dollar system had a fatal flaw, he embarrassed the very people who built it. He exposed a weakness in something that was meant to appear perfect and infallible. There were no medals. There were no promotions. There were only questions. Why did you hesitate? Why didn't you follow protocol? For years, the entire story remained hidden. Top secret. Classified. Buried deep in a government archive. Because moments where disaster is narrowly avoided are inconvenient truths for powerful systems. Only after the Cold War finally ended did the world begin to learn the truth. Only then did a name emerge from the shadows of history. Stanislav Petrov. He never considered himself a hero. In interviews, he would just say, "I was just doing my job. I was the right person, in the right place, at the right time." He lived the rest of his life quietly. There are no statues of him in town squares. There were no parades in his honor. He just had the quiet knowledge that the world continued to exist because he chose doubt over blind certainty. Stanislav Petrov passed away in 2017. Most people today will never know his name. But every single breath you take, every sunrise you get to see, and every future you hope to plan, it all exists because one man, alone in a dark room, decided to wait. We build these complex systems to be faster than us, to be smarter than us. But systems don't have a conscience. They don't have intuition. And sometimes, a little bit of human doubt is the only thing that saves us all. So ask yourself this. If you had just 60 seconds, a screen flashing red, telling you the world was ending, a machine insisting it was right, and everyone around you expecting you to act, would you have trusted the system? Or would you have waited? Thanks for watching. If this story made you think, consider subscribing for more stories you were never meant to hear. See you next time.